Hello, this is Brad Wild, and today we're starting in Frankfort, Indiana, which is just a little bit north of Indianapolis. We've got instrument conditions, and in front of me, in front of you, is the Carenado C210, and I'm using the SimCoders Reality Pack. And we're going to fly up to DuPage Airport, which is west of Chicago, about 30 miles, and we'll do an instrument approach coming from the south. Let's just take a look at the map. So I've got a sectional pulled up, and you can see Indianapolis down here, and we're going to fly VORs. So we'll fly to this first one here near Purdue, the university, Purdue, and then on up to one near Kankakee, and this little box here shows the frequencies. So the one here at Purdue, I'm looking for it, it's called Boiler, and it's 115.1, and then 111.6 up to Joliet VOR, and that's 112.3. And then we're going to be flying an approach to pick up the ILS into runway 2 left. Let's just take a look at that approach plate. So here's Joliet, and after we reach the Joliet VOR, we're going to take a 359 radial out, and we'll use our second VOR to pick up the 288 radial from Chicago Heights VOR, so we get an approximate position for our initial approach fix. So you can see, well, and we want to be at 3,000 feet, and here is Boomer intersection, and we'll pick up the glide slope here. So here we are in the airplane, and if you're using the Reality Pack, there's a little menu that pops out over on the left side of your screen, and we need to do a walk around, which begins by turning on the master switches. And then this pops up over here, and you just begin to walk around the airplane, and you can actually close things up. And if you want, you can actually check the surfaces, which you would normally do in a walk around, and your pre-flight, and we'll toggle our tie downs. Check the aileron, make sure that it's working. Toggle the tie down, check the gas cap, remove the chocks, remove our engine cover, and we check the oil here. Gas caps, chocks, remove the pitot tube cover, toggle the tie down, check our aileron, and now we can climb in. And we can also close our doors. And we're ready to get started. Let's close this, and so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to remove the yoke for right now. And in this airplane, you need to, first of all, make sure your fuel is on, and then mixture full rich, throttle full, because we want to prime the pump, as it were. So I'm going to check my fuel flow here. So I turn on my fuel pump, and I wait till it gets to about 6, and then turn it off. Don't want to flood the engine. throttle back and then forward about a 1/4 inch. Beacon on, and we're ready to start. Whoops. Get a little better angle here. And we are rolling. Get our radios turned on here. And while the engine warms up, we can set our VORs. So the 530 pops out. Here we are at Frankfurt, and our first VOR, if you recall, I'm going to switch to the low altitude chart, instrument chart. So we need to dial in 115.1. So this is the standby position, and then you can see that it's picked it up here. And I want to dial my OBS until the needle is centered. And the little triangle is pointing forward, so the VOR is ahead of us at 330. And I can also set the second one if I need to. That second VOR is Kankakee, and that is 111.6. The 430 pops out. And I doubt we're going to pick anything up right now. Yeah, the needle's not moving. We're just too far away. VORs are line of sight. So the greater your altitude, the greater chance you'll have of actually picking one up. Let's dial some lights up here. There we go, I like that. And I'm going to dial in an altitude of 10,000 feet. And you can see we're at 28 miles. This is the DME. We're 28 miles from that VOR. So how about a notch of flaps? Our temperatures are coming up, and we can head over to the runway. Let me just show you on this map. We're here. We're going to make a left and take off on this runway here. I don't know what the number is, but we'll know it when we see it. But it's will get us going in the northwesterly direction. At least the brakes. And I won't bother you with all this taxiing, but you can join me when I get to my runway. So we're going to do our run-up right here on the runway. There's no taxiway here. This is our departing runway. So we'll make sure our control surfaces are all free. And then let's just check our magnetos. So we're going to be watching our RPM as we, first of all, rev the engine up to 1700. And then we want to see if the magnetos have a significant drop. And both. Back to right. This switch is very sensitive. And back to both. But we had a very little drop, which is a good sign. So back on the throttle to idle. So nav lights, strobe, landing light. Let's get our yoke back. Might need that, huh? And we've got 1 notch of flaps. And we won't be taxiing all the way to the end, probably don't have to. Whoops, got a little close to the edge there. All right. Full throttle. Watch the P factor in this airplane. And rotate at 70. And gear up. I have a hard time flying that way. All right. Flaps up. And we want to start flying towards our VOR. So we're just a little bit to the right. So we'll wait for that needle to come across. So how about some autopilot here? So we're going to be on VOR. So I don't need the CDI to say GPS. And let's pull this up. You can, we'll just click nav. And we'll arm our altitude. And we can come back on our prop now. About 2,500 RPM. And come back on the throttle to 30 inches. Oops. Wrong switch. So we'll just climb out here. These are default clouds from X-Plane. And there we go. In the clear. Passenger view. This armed light had turned off. So we should level off at 10,000 feet. Our autopilot is holding the pitch. As we reach 10,000 feet, it now flips to alt. And the nose will come down. And hopefully we'll pick up some speed. So we've got 19 miles to go before we get to that first VOR. There's one thing I forgot to show you, and that's how to lean the mixture. So we're going to use this EGT gauge, and you reduce your mixture until that needle starts to come up. It'll peak and then drop back down. And that's where you want it. So I'm going to push it in just a little bit. In a real airplane, I would tighten this knob. There's a knot there that holds it. Here's our Cessna 210 at 10,000 feet. We're coming up on boiler VOR. You can see it just ahead of us, 5 miles. So before we get there though, let's dial in that other VOR. And remember, it's down here, 11.6. So I'll press the center of this left button, and don't have too far to go here. And when we get to boiler, you'll see this flip this will flip from forward to backward, which means we need to begin navigating towards Kankakee. It's not a radical move, as you can see. It's almost the same. Anyway, you can see the needles start to fluctuate here. And this will flip around. So it's flipped, and I'm going to go ahead and set our VOR for Kankakee, and then just center this needle. So our bearing has changed just a little bit. And we've got 46 miles to go. We do have a bit of a headwind, which accounts for the slower speed. Alright, we've just got, move this, well, you can see it here, 4.5 miles to go. So we are approaching Kankakee, and next is Joliet, and our frequency is 112.3. So we can set that on our standby. Get that ready to go. So just a few miles away, and then we'll head towards Joliet. And all I want to do is flip this switch when our needle gets a little bouncy, and this flag flips back. Now, it is possible to fly outbound by dialing in a radial, but we're just going to fly from, we'll always have the 2 flag, I'll put it that way. But if you want, we can try it, just so you can see what it's like. So we're going to be flying outbound on 323. So I will just dial that in, 323. Right now it's at 310. So as soon as I get the 2 flag, or the from flag, I'll dial it. So we should be getting that shortly. So the needle is starting to get a little crazy. It's going. And we can set this to 223. So now we have the from arrow, so that needle will start coming back. So we're still flying on the Kankakee VOR on an outbound radial. So that's one way to do it. Now we can check our work here. We could actually dial in Kankakee or Joliet on this radio. Is that 12, right? 3. And you can see the needle moving, and we can just go ahead and dial that. And you can see it's right about 320, 22. So again, we can just double check our work. But let's go ahead and flip this now that you get the general idea, and we'll fly towards it. And we just want to center that needle. There we go. And we've got 31 miles. Oh, we got some breaks in the clouds too. Let's talk about our descent. We are 30 miles out. Let's go over to X-Plane Tools, and let's use the descent calculator. We're at 10,000 feet right now. We want to be miles from target. Okay. Target altitude is 3,000 feet if you recall from looking at our approach chart. And I don't know, we'll probably average a little bit faster as we descend, so let's say 140. And we'll descend at 1,000 feet per minute. So we want to begin our descent about 16 miles out in order to be at 3,000 feet at Joliet. So, back in a minute. So we are at 16 miles, and I want to begin our descent down to 3,000. I need to be a little bit more aggressive because I was asleep at the wheel. Alright, and we'll arm it and click vertical speed. And let's start with 1100, see if we can't pick up a little time. Not too worried. So 3,000 feet, it's armed, descending at about 1100. Just check our fuel. We can probably flip it around to the other tank. Kind of sensitive. Don't want to turn it off, folks. Chicago Heights, 114.2. And we want to intercept or detect this 288 radial. By the way, if you're headed towards a VOR, it's really a bearing, and if you're flying from it, you're flying the radial. Let's see, that's going to be on this other radio, the 430. I forgot what it was. 114.2. So press that center button and 114.2. It's not going to really do much right now, but you can see the needle swing. So we will dial this down to 288. And that will be our initial approach fix. Alright, over the Joliet VOR. And it flips, so we'll go right to 359. You know, some of the more sophisticated aircraft will actually have a digital readout, which makes it a little easier, but that looks about right. So that needle will catch up in a minute. So now we're headed almost northbound, and we're going to want to pick up this Boomer intersection. So 9.9 miles from the Juliet VOR, and we'll be crossing the 288 radial of Chicago Heights. And at that point, we're going to want to dial in our localizer frequency, or switch to approach, I'm sorry. Let's dial in 111.7 right now. So that's ready to go. So we will just watch this, and then this needle, we'll see it come across shortly. Another mile to go, and that needle is almost centered. So you can see how you can use this second VOR to help situate yourself horizontally. And when I click approach, you might see it jump around a little bit. But I'm going to go ahead and switch now and click approach. And the plane is looking for that localizer. And you can see that the glide slope bugs have appeared at the top, so it's well above us, so we're going to fly into it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this towards our runway heading, which is, what did I say it was? 15. Just as a reference. So our needle is centered, we're on the localizer, and these have begun to move. Alright, our bugs are dropping, and when they hit this center point, we should see the nose come down. Our vertical speed needle will drop. And there we go. Let's put the gear down. That is the craziest thing. So everything looks relatively normal here, nominal on the glide slope and localizer. And we can put in a notch of flaps. So that's our outer marker right here, Spence. Our minimums, so ILS, all the way across all classes of aircraft, 954, so 200 feet above the ground and a half-mile visibility. So we're legal. So we want to start looking for that runway. Still another 700 feet. well, more like 400 to our minimum. Final notch of flaps. And we see the airport. Thought I would see some lights on, but I see the runway here. So full flaps, 75 knots, about perfect. There are no VASI or PAPI lights here. So let's kill our autopilot. Oh yeah, we've got lights. This is a bouncy aircraft. And kind of squirrely without those rudder pedals. Don't want the engine to get too slow. And we'll just stop here and clean up our flaps. And we can kill our strobe. Landing light and strobe. And let's head on over to our hangar. And we'll just park it right here. So, lean the mixture. And here we are at DuPage Airport, Kilo Delta Papa Alpha. So thanks for doing this VOR flight up from Indiana with me. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Thanks. Until next time.